Hi Mark, and welcome to SA Rugby Magazine on a show on a cold winter's day in Cape Town. Certainly wasn't this cold 25 years ago when the Boks played Australia in the opening of the Rugby World Cup '95.
Yeah, different era, different weather, and just one of those magnificent days. And I always say, with my recollection of the '95 World Cup, and I covered it for Business Day back then, and it was back in the day where they sent you everywhere, and you'd do one match on a Thursday, another one on a Saturday, another one on a Sunday. But coming down here, the sun was shining, it was glorious, and it was the first time though that I felt ever that I'd been to Newlands, and I'd been going there since I was 8 years old, that I felt that there was a unified South African element, and it was green, because just a month before that, Western Province had played the President's 15, which was effectively the Springbok squad, in a final trial match, and Tian Strauss had captained the Province team, had an absolute blinder, and Joel Stransky kicked a last-minute drop goal for the President's 15 to win 25-23. And the crowd jeered the Boks. They booed them. They booed Stransky. They went to Kings Park the next week. They won 27-25. The Durban crowd booed them. This whole drama around all the Transvaal players that were picked, 12 of them in the squad, the rest scattered in terms of representation, was everything but united. Yeah. And then in that week, you had Madiba arriving at Silvermine with a helicopter, addressing the squad, Henny LaRue giving him a Springbok cap that he wore, the pictures, and everything just turned like that. And there was this absolute mood of nationalism, patriotism, and people wore green and not blue and white necessarily. The Boks hadn't won a home series since coming back. They had lost in '92 to Australia and New Zealand. '93 they had drawn and lost a test against France, and '94 they had been hammered in Pretoria by England in the first test and came back dramatically, won at Newlands 29-9, and then went to New Zealand and lost the series there, and then went over at the end of '94 with Kitch Christie and actually won a couple of tests and won two in October against Argentina. So they had no form going into the World Cup. Yeah. But Transvaal was a very good side. They were one of the top provincial sides in the world, and Kitch Christie had been appointed. He took all the Transvaal players. And we kind of alternated back then. We alternated between the Wallaby camp and between the Bok camp. And what you found, it was like basically going to, and I covered Transvaal as the provincial beat at that stage. They knew each other so well. 12 of that 15 were Transvaal players, with their coach and their captain. So it was replacing the Wanderers with Silvermine in terms of training. They had continuity, they had confidence. Australia, in the build-up, several of their leading players weren't training. They were injured. They were trying to nurse them back, saying by the quarterfinals they'd be fit to take them through. Nick Farr-Jones had retired. And that was the big thing, as George Gregan went on to have one of the most celebrated careers, but at that stage he'd only played 6 test matches, and they felt there was a vulnerability. So when you were at Australian training and then at the Bok training, at the press conferences, you started to get the sense in the week that this side actually believes they can win because they're conditioned, they're fit, they're comfortable. The other side, there's more kind of hope than conviction in whether they could win because they were walking winded. And even though it was close at halftime, 14-13, I think the more the game went on, the more the Boks started seeing this was a world champion side that had had its best years. Yeah. And that proved in the World Cup when Rob Andrew kicked them out of it at Newlands as well in the quarterfinal. So having been here, kind of a lot of the South African journalists were saying there is a very good chance of the side beating Australia, more so because of the Aussies being in quite a bit of disarray. And then when Madiba kind of gave it his endorsement at training and then came out and welcomed the world to it, it really was something quite special to hear a predominantly white crowd chanting Nelson, 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 and the surge of
predominantly white.
Yeah, when I say predominantly white, I think there was the odd coloured oak who was there, because there certainly wasn't too many blacks in the stands back then, you know. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was just, and it was a Thursday afternoon, so it was quite weird to be at Newlands on a Thursday afternoon, not a weekend, seeing rugby played with absolute sunshine. And just a magnificent occasion. I was fortunate to be at Ellis Park for the final, but in the context of just setting the scene, and that afternoon and that match will probably be the most special one for me in terms of what I saw, having experienced where South Africa had been 92 through to 95. As the tournament grew, that belief came that potentially they could win it. But at that stage, there was nothing but just basically arrogance, some would say, and ignorance to say the Boks will win it at that stage, given their record going from 92 into that World Cup. But a marvelous, marvelous day. And what I'm enjoying about this week and seeing all the kind of the tries that were scored and the recollection is I've always just felt, in this country especially, 95, 2007, we've now won a World Cup with 2019. We only seem to remember the latest, and they become the greatest. And New Zealand's the only other country that's won it 3 times. Goodness, I'd love to see 95, 2007, and 2019, see all those players in a room one day, to see it celebrated. We won 3 World Cups and we attended 2 less tournaments. It's something to be proud of, and we need to celebrate the heroes of 95 as much as we are applauding and celebrating the 2019 heroes now.
Yeah, and I'm saying spare thought to the 95 players that aren't with us anymore.
Exactly, you know, with the US and Ruben Kruger and James Small, and they all
And Chester,
and they all played massive roles in that, and Keohane as well. You know, so I really think it shouldn't need a 20th, a 25th, a 10th anniversary for us to actually remember them and recall just what a magnificent occasion it was, and just how well they played to actually get the victory. You know, 2007, there was a feeling the Boks could actually win that thing. 2019, as we spoke, we always felt it's going to be them and potentially New Zealand in the final, and that we felt they were as good as New Zealand, and whoever kind of had that extra 10% would win it. But 95 here, we will never host another World Cup here. The economics won't allow for it. And for me, that's why that one becomes so significant and so absolutely memorable, and the Madiba factor, which we would also never have again in this country.
Yeah, what a special time. And where were you guys when that World Cup was on? Anyway, give us your thoughts and comments on that, and just share some of your opinions. Appreciate that. Mark, thanks for that story.